Ukraine says drone strikes on Dnipro have killed at least 9 people. Russia carried out a wave of attacks across areas in eastern Ukraine. Strikes have been reported in Poltava, Kharkiv, the port city of Odessa, and in the capital, Kyiv. The Ukrainian military has warned Russia is planning a large-scale offensive to break through its defences on the front line. Well, President Volodymyr Zelensky says Ukraine is ready to hold direct talks with Russia, but only if a ceasefire is in place.
If the Russians are ready for a complete ceasefire, then, after a complete ceasefire, with an understanding of how long it will last, we are ready for any format of negotiations with them. Any format.
Well, Zelensky's comments come as the Ukrainian foreign minister holds talks in London with representatives from the UK, France and Germany. The meeting was supposed to include US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, but has seemingly been downgraded after he withdrew without explanation. But the US Special Envoy to Ukraine and Russia, Keith Kellogg, will be attending. The meeting comes after EU foreign ministers and the US met in Paris earlier this month to find ways to end the war in Ukraine. Well, for the latest, we're going to speak to Sonia Gallego, who is in London. Rubio, as I mentioned, no longer involved in the talks. What message does that send? And I guess, really, does it change anything at all?
Well, not only does it signal a downgrading of these talks, but also of hopes as well. Hopes are the ones that have been downgraded too as to what can be seriously achieved at this meeting. Nevertheless, Trump's envoy is expected to go to Moscow later on this week. But with the threats that the US has made already, President Trump, and echoed by J.D. Vance, the vice president, the question is exactly what can be achieved, given that they said that if no progress would be made, then the U.S. itself would walk away from the talks, and that would really present an enormous challenge, certainly to those figures sitting in the building behind me here, as to how they can come up with any form of workable ceasefire.
And I guess, is that the main point of these talks, to try and get as close to some sort of ceasefire agreement as possible?
Well, that is indeed, and it's certainly something that has been pushed also by the Ukrainian President Zelensky, and also, but with that are the challenges. Now, we've heard also recently from the US that there has to be a ceding of territory, and for the Ukrainians, that is going to be an enormous thing for them to give up in this case. And there's also the sense that if the US does make good on its promise and pull away entirely, that is going to present an enormous challenge to the European parties that are involved in trying to bring about that ceasefire as well. It is not just about the armaments as well and the question of that support that has been given to Ukraine, but it's also intelligence sharing as well. If the US goes from that, then the European leaders that are involved in this are going to find themselves in an enormous bind, which means that they are here also trying to set about some kind of solution to that, and whether the answer will be to up military spending as a way of showing support to their allies in Ukraine.
Thank you so much, Sonia. Sonia Gallego for us in London.